Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome back to another Sheffield DM. Really excited to be hosting you all again. This is the 17th Sheffield DM we've run now. And yeah, almost 2.5 years we've been doing it. Time's flown by and I've really been enjoying doing it this year, despite the online format and not being able to buy you all a beer down the pub. Either way, if you're new to Sheffield DM, then here's how it works. Every 2 weeks on a Thursday lunchtime, we host talks from a bunch of amazing marketers who work across the whole spectrum of digital marketing from all across the UK and actually beyond. We've had some speakers from Spain and from the US over the last couple of weeks, so expanding into some interesting international horizons. If you don't know me, I'm your host, Giorgio Casella, and I'm the head of marketing at Evoluted, who are the proud sponsors and organisers of Sheffield DM. And this week, we are joined by Luke Northbrooke. Now, Luke is a paid media strategist who works at Impression over in Nottingham. He's been there since February 2019, so a few years now. It's getting on. He's particularly interested, or so he says, in finding multi-channel solutions to delivering bottom-line results for clients. And jargon aside, what that means is he's really bloody good at what he does. And we're really excited to have him here today. And he's going to be talking all about what you should do as a paid marketer when your search campaigns, your shopping campaigns are suffering because your stock, your shipping, your manufacturing become a little bit of a nightmare. And with things like the Suez Canal, with Brexit, with everything going crazy in the world, with kind of microchip, microtransistor manufacturing at the moment, it's all just a nightmare. He's going to give us some real actionable tips on what we can do to make sure that our campaigns don't suffer. So, Luke, welcome to Sheffield DM.
Thanks for having me. Yeah, that personal intro sounded a lot more cringy hearing it back. But yeah, so yeah, as you said, today's session is going to be mainly on kind of what you can do with search and shopping campaigns when that kind of global shipping situation is, yeah, just generally speaking, a bit of a nightmare at the moment. So yeah, kind of getting straight onto it. If you want to do the slides.
Yeah, I will cut the waffle and let you get straight to it. There are your slides. I will see you on the other side.
Good.
As always, anybody who is watching, feel free to drop Luke any questions in the chat. At the end of the session, we'll go through them all. We'll do some Q&A. Any burning questions that you've got throughout, let us know. Over to you, Luke.
Cool. Thanks a lot. So yeah, as I said, the last year has been a nightmare, obviously. Outside of the obvious kind of pandemic impacts, probably one of the biggest things globally that's happened is what you could call a global distribution crisis. So basically, to give like an overview of what's happened really quickly, in response to kind of the pandemic starting in China, all of the kind of production and shipping in that country basically slowed down massively as they locked their country down. They were kind of preparing for what they thought was going to be a repeat of the financial crisis back in 2008, where demand took a really long time to kind of catch up after this like initial crisis. But in reality, as the virus kind of spread across the rest of the world, the opposite actually happened. And demand kind of spiked hugely in the Western world for specific kinds of products, I guess like homeware, garden furniture, exercise equipment, that kind of thing, as people were just stuck at home more. So the situation in China, once that happened, was that after kind of shutting everywhere down and minimizing their kind of capacity to produce, the production has to like suddenly spike really quickly to keep up with demand. And what happened was that the factories and means of production actually really outstripped the kind of shipping companies means to distribute those products because they've kind of been idling all of the like massive vessels. And as a result, they basically have to mobilize like all of their ships and all of the available shipping containers to keep up with the huge spike in demand that they're seeing. What this kind of like led to was, as everything kind of left China at the same time and goes across the world to kind of big ports like Los Angeles or Rotterdam, when they arrive at those ports, because the virus has spread and lockdowns have spread to other parts of the world, there's not enough staff at those ports and like not enough capacity to kind of deal with all the like sudden influx of ships and containers that they're seeing. So you basically end up with huge queues of enormous shipping containers taking up like all of the anchoring points at these massive ports. And they're just sat there like for weeks on end, in some cases, doing nothing. While at the same time, production is going at an ever increasing rate in China, without the means to actually send it anywhere, or at least a very limited means to send it anywhere, because the ships and the containers are all on the other side of the world doing nothing. So the result of this, because the shipping companies basically can't cope, is that the cost of shipping increases enormously, especially to Europe. So this graph kind of shows you that throughout 2020 and coming into 2021, the cost of like importing a shipping container from Shanghai to Rotterdam like more than quadrupled at some points of 2020. So you know, this obviously has like a massive impact for businesses, obviously in terms of the cost itself, but then in terms of like digital marketers and advertisers specifically, what we really will be concerned with is that you know, whether you're agency side or client side, the businesses you work with will have, or some of them will have really low stock, really hard to predict resupplies, and it's basically impossible to say when things are going to go back to normal. Like it could be later this year, it could be the end of 2022, or potentially even further out than that. And as a result, kind of like advertising, specifically for e-commerce, especially if your products are in these kind of sectors that have been in really high demand, is really difficult because you can waste money on products that are out of stock so easily. And then obviously, to make matters worse, you have someone blocking the Suez Canal for a week and causing a huge bottleneck in what has already been a really difficult situation, which has left a lot of us feeling like this tiny digger trying to dig out this enormous shipping container from the Suez Canal. So yeah, how can we adapt to this situation is what we're going to go through in the rest of this presentation, and hopefully it will kind of deal with just search campaigns and shopping campaigns separately, and some really practical ways of how you can kind of update your campaigns or take a different approach to deal with this situation. So when it comes to search campaigns, the main reason that it's so difficult when we have this situation is because as soon as you get past, I don't know, even probably 100 different products that you sell, it's basically impossible to keep on top of your kind of product-based keywords and which of those products are kind of in stock and out of stock if the levels are changing really frequently, which in a lot of industries they are. So basically, like, especially if you get to like thousands of different SKUs, you're going to have search campaigns with enabled keywords which are sending users to like landing pages for products which are out of stock, which is obviously a complete waste of money. So the main question there is, how do we prevent that? How do we send users to only product pages which have in-stock products? So that's what we'll cover in the first part. And then the second part on shopping, the situation is a little bit different here because Google Merchant Center obviously takes care of when products are explicitly out of stock by not showing ads for them. But what we found at Impression is that a lot of our clients, the situation's a bit more nuanced than that, and there will be certain like priority products that they have like a really good stock depth for, or enough to kind of cope with the demand. And that's where you really want to kind of restrict your media spend to. So the kind of question that we'll try and answer there is, how can we dynamically prioritize those like key products on a, you know, kind of a weekly or perhaps like less frequently basis. So starting with search campaigns, this is definitely the easiest place to kind of waste media spend on out of stock products. So this is kind of a screenshot that one of our clients probably wouldn't like to see, but did happen, where on their product-based keywords spread out across kind of, literally thousands of SKUs in this case, the cost kind of stayed the same over the best part of last year. But because more and more products were going out of stock over time, a lot of these clicks were just leading to product pages with out of stock products on, and as a result, the conversions drop. And as you can see, over time, the kind of average cost per conversion goes up massively. So we were kind of seeing this and thinking we have to do something about this. It's impossible to keep track of this by just enabling and pausing keywords because there are just far too many of them. So what do we do? So the kind of technique that we came up with was using a combination of like internal resource from the clients and then like business data page feed within Google Ads to kind of provide dynamic search ad campaigns with a list of just these key like priority product URLs. So I guess the key thing here is to actually get this list of priority products from the client, or if you're working client side, produce this list. But once you have it, you can basically look up the URLs for that list of like item IDs or SKUs from Google Merchant Center. And one kind of tool that we use to make this a lot easier is the Merchant Center Exporter tool, which is available as a Sheets add-on that I've kind of linked here. But yeah, basically this just pulls out all of the product data from Google Merchant Center. And then from that, if you have a list of like priority item IDs or product titles, however you get that kind of list together, you can then look up the URLs for those particular products. And then we can use that to kind of create a page feed to feed a dynamic search ads campaign. So the way to kind of do this is, I would say, you just look up all of the relevant landing pages and then pull those into a separate Google Sheet, which will act as the page feed. So you create a column called page URL and then another column called custom label. And then you can put whatever you want in the kind of custom label column alongside every single URL that you want to prioritize. So in this case, we were advertising bikes. So we've just labeled them up as bikes priority. Once you've created this sheet, you'll need to go in Google Ads, go to Tools and Settings, and then Business Data, and then click the little blue plus and create a page feed. What you'll need to do in here is firstly download your Google Sheet as a CSV file, because for some reason Business Data won't let you start with like a Google Sheet, even though you can change it to that afterwards. And then upload the CSV as a page feed. And then once you've done that, it will pull a load of all the information in, and then you can go into settings and directly link the Google Sheet itself, so you can keep it as like a live document that kind of refetches from the sheet every hour if you want, or every day, and you can even change things on like a daily basis in here if the stock situation is changing that quickly. So yeah, there's kind of this is the within the settings there, you can like manually link the actual sheet itself, and then set the frequency. And then once you've done that, you're kind of ready to create this new DSA campaign, which will be linked or be showing ads only for those priority products, which using their URLs. So create a new campaign as normal, and ensure that when you kind of do this, you open the show more settings, kind of drop down near the top. And as you can see here, there's kind of a few options for dynamic search ad settings. What you want to do here is select the use URLs from my page feed only in the targeting source, because this will mean at the next step that you can actually select your page feed. If you don't do this, you just get like categories based on the index of your website, which is obviously not particularly useful in this case. At this point, or kind of in the next step, if you only have like one group of priority products, then you only really need to set up one ad group as you go through the rest of the steps to kind of set up the campaign as normal. But if you want to be more granular and split things out by product category, or have different levels of priority, then you can do that as well. But when you get to kind of creating the actual ad group, you obviously want to set this up as a dynamic ad group. And then once you've kind of got the options there, you'll basically have like a few options. I think it's custom labels from the feed, as in this screenshot, and then specific URLs, and then all website URLs. So what you want to do is select custom labels from the feed, start typing in the name of your custom label. And what we found with this is that it takes about 5-10 seconds for some reason for the actual drop down to show up, but just keep like typing it in and waiting, and it will show up eventually. And then you just click add, and this will basically set the dynamic ad targets for the DSA campaign just to those priority product URLs. So you know that everything the campaign is going to show ads for will be in stock. And then you'll just need to finish up the creation of the DSA campaign by writing descriptions for each of your ad groups that you've set up, whether you set up one or several. And because it's DSA, the headlines are going to be dynamic. So because it's product led, it will probably include information like the product name and the price and that kind of thing. And then you can just tailor the descriptions to be kind of around the business's wider USPs. So what the kind of delivery times are like, and any kind of customer service things. You don't have to make these product specific at all, because the headlines will be dealing with that. So yeah, that's kind of how the DSA campaign will work. Once you've done that, obviously it's going to be, as long as your landing pages are good, it's going to be pulling in relevant search queries for only products that are in stock. And this means you can kind of put as much advertising budget through those campaigns as possible. But as I said, really these can be configured in any way you want. So if you need to split these out by category or different levels of priority, it is possible to do that. One other thing that in theory it is possible to do, but we haven't done ourselves yet, but could be quite a good idea even further down the line, just as a general best practice, is to add like another layer to this. So as well as priority products in one set of DSA campaigns, you would then have just all other in-stock products. That would obviously be excluding any of the priority products that you created in the other campaign, but you'd need to exclude all out-of-stock products as well. And to do that, there's no kind of like way of easily pulling stock availability into a page feed. So what you'd have to do is create like a customized version of your Google Merchant Center feed and apply that as like a separate feed, a separate page feed with custom labels within business data as well. So you'd have two page feeds in business data, one for priority products and one for non-priority in-stock products. And then you could basically set the non-priority DSA campaign, which you would create in the exact same way, to have negative dynamic ad targets, which would obviously be this list of out-of-stock products, and then the previous list of priority products as well. So that would then mean you've just got one DSA campaign for the really high priority stuff that you put most of your budget through, and then another layer of campaigns, which is in-stock stuff that you do want to advertise, but you don't want to push really hard. And then all of your out-of-stock products would be excluded. So there is kind of the means to do this, but creating this like customized dynamic like data feed is obviously like a bit more of a challenging task than just getting a list of priority SKUs, which would probably be a much smaller number. And one thing that's kind of interesting is this would actually like be a pretty good way to structure your campaigns, generally speaking, without like taking into account stock issues. So as Google gets more focused around leveraging automation, we're finding that dynamic search ads are becoming more and more important to kind of include in your normal campaigns. So what you might do is, alongside having these kind of priority DSA ad groups within a campaign, you might also have kind of the product-based keywords or more general keywords for those products as like keyword targeted campaigns as well, ad groups within the same campaign. So you can have several layers of like consolidated product focused campaigns, which then are like really data dense. They have loads of conversion data in, which you can then apply like an automated bidding strategy to. And Google's like getting really good at obviously figuring out which search queries are most valuable, especially when you provide it with this much information. So you can kind of have, maybe a maximized conversions bid strategy on your priority products campaign, and then everything else would be either on manual or maybe more of like a target CPA focus. So that kind of covers search campaigns, which is obviously the biggest area to potentially lose money. But there's still stuff we can do with shopping campaigns to streamline those a bit more in the current situation as well. So moving on to those. As I said, out-of-stock products are automatically excluded from showing ads by Merchant Center. But when stock is particularly tight, as it is in a large number of industries right now, you might want to ensure that your shopping campaigns are only spending in a meaningful way on a certain group of products. And some of the clients that we work with, this is honestly changing on a weekly or even multiple times a week basis. So what we've done in this case is to use custom labels in a similar way as we did with search campaigns, by taking that exact same list of priority SKUs and kind of create a separate Google sheet for these that is kind of completely separate to the page feed you created before. So you take that list of SKUs, and then there's no need to kind of look up URLs or anything this time. You can just add your same custom labels alongside the products as you did before. If you get more granular with these, it can make it easier to kind of fit around your how you're going to build your shopping campaigns, or if you've already structured your shopping campaigns by product category, then you might want to kind of like match up your custom labels to those categories so you can more easily segment them based on like what already exists in your account. So there's like several ways to upload this information into Merchant Center and subsequently Google Ads. You can use like a feed optimization client, which is what we generally do internally. But if kind of you don't have access to one of these, you can just do it in a supplemental feed with Google Merchant Center. And because this is kind of the more widely accessible way, the examples here are all kind of based around that. So what you need to do is in your the sheet that you've created with the SKUs and the custom labels, you just need to make sure that the headers match Google's kind of specifications. So on the previous slide, you could see here, it's ID and custom label 3 all in lowercase. All of this kind of information is available online, but yeah, you do need to make sure that it matches up correctly. Otherwise it won't pull in correctly. But then you just go into Merchant Center and click, go into the feed section, add the supplemental feed, and use the kind of Google Sheet option so that you can just like have this dynamically pull from the sheet, which will stay live. And yeah, whenever you kind of update that list from now on, if you use the Sheets option, it will automatically update, which will then subsequently pull into your Google Ads account. So once you've kind of got the supplemental feed created, you obviously need to change your shopping structure or create new shopping campaigns like based around that information that you've just added to your feed. So the way that we've kind of done this in the bikes example that I pulled out earlier was by kind of, we're currently segmenting our ad groups by brand. So within each of those brands, we'll then, beforehand, we just had in this example here, all products, and then all of this particular brand's like products within that kind of just having the same bid. But what we want to do now is go into like another layer of depth with that. So we there's usually a little pencil icon here. You click that and then go to the custom label that you created. There's like a little drop down, and you can pick, if you have loads of other custom labels as well, you just pick the right one that you applied in your supplemental feed. and then split it out by the name of your custom label, and then everything else will just appear there as well. And then, as you can see, you can apply your bids kind of differentially based on whether it's a priority product or not. What we'd probably recommend here, rather than like whacking the bids up for the priority products, is like pulling back significantly on the non-priority stuff, because if you leave your kind of everything else the same as whatever your bids were before, but like massively increase the bids on the priority products, all that's really going to do is kind of inflate your CPCs. It might divert or probably will divert the spend more towards those priority products, but you end up just paying more for fewer, or paying the same for fewer clicks. So we recommend pulling back on everything else rather than just hugely increasing those bids. And what this should do is funnel like the majority of your advertising budget on shopping through those products. So yeah, like as we said, it's not something that is totally necessary if you have pretty good stock depth among the products that are in stock. But if you have kind of difficulties with knowing when certain products are going to be coming in and on a weekly basis, the situation's changing, then this technique can be really valuable. Just kind of touching on one way to kind of get a top level view of this. I mean, in the example I gave before, obviously that everything was already split out by the bike brands that we have for that client, and it's spread out over a number of campaigns. So if you kind of need to check that the majority of your budget is being spent through those priority products, the best way to do that is to go into Google Ads reports and setting up a report for the custom label as a dimension, and then clicks or costs, whatever, as your metrics. And then the kind of dimension, or the row with the little dash, is kind of everything else. And then obviously you can see all the different custom labels that we've applied here and how the budget is being used on those. So that's basically the two techniques that we've got in a nutshell. There's just a couple notes on kind of how to manage these once you've set them up, and how to kind of like work with the different like campaigns that you've just created, and the optimization is just a little bit different to normal. So as I said, it's all very well and good doing that, but was it actually useful? So the main thing here is that keeping this list of SKUs updated, if you have like thousands of products, is obviously a really time-consuming task. So if you have 30,000 products and in any given week, 1,000 of them might be the priority, who does that fall to? So if you're agency side, that is obviously a problem. We're like very limited by time, and you can't be like trawling through a massive list of products to see what's in stock and what is priority. Chances are you probably don't know what the stock depth is. So get the client to do it. If you're client side, you probably know the products better and you probably have a bit more time, so you should do it. And as long as you keep the same sheet for your page feed and your supplemental feed, the actual process itself doesn't take that long. So once you've got that actual list of SKUs updated, all you need to do is basically just paste them into those two sheets, update the custom labels, and then just pretty much hit refresh on the supplemental feed and the business data page feed, which you can do in the settings of business data. There's like an update now button. And then kind of the second thing to touch on is actually optimizing those campaigns. So as I mentioned, this is, generally speaking, especially for search, quite a good way of just generally structuring your campaigns now. But as long as you're kind of splitting everything out around however you need to apply your budget, so like usually that's kind of done on a priority basis anyway, then once you've done that, keep as few campaigns and ad groups as possible. And then with these kind of priority DSA search campaigns, for the first kind of month or so, make sure that your search queries are looking as good as you want, because obviously that can be the danger with DSAs, in that you can kind of, based on what's on your landing page, can pull in irrelevant search queries. But once you've got applied negatives to those and got the search queries looking in a really good way, we'd recommend just getting it on maximize conversions as soon as possible, because that strategy works really well with dynamic search ad campaigns. And And that's why it works so well, even if your stock isn't limited, kind of a long keyword-based ad groups. And then, as I said, with shopping, make sure that you drop your non-priority bids, especially if your budget gets limited. And then if you're using kind of search query filtering across your shopping campaigns, start running that as normal. So you want to make sure that within these different priorities, you might be bidding more aggressively when users searching for the brand name of a bike in that example, as opposed to people just searching for kind of road bikes or mountain bikes. And that is it. So yeah, any questions on that at all? I think we were able to do a Q&A.
We've got plenty of time to do a Q&A. Excellent stuff. Thank you, Luke.
Yeah, no problem.
No questions have come through the chat just yet, but I have got a couple of talking points, and you have to excuse me because I am an SEO by trade, so I'm very ignorant about a lot of the complexities of shopping campaigns and more advanced elements of paid media. But one thing that I do know about is dealing with clients. And I guess one of the big things is, what is your advice for people on making sure they have those conversations with clients? Or I guess if you're in-house with procurement teams, if you're a slightly bigger company, about these issues and being looped in on problems, whether it's a shipping issue or manufacturing issue. And you mentioned 30,000 products, if 1,000 of them are priority. If you're not the one directly dealing with that, how are you having those conversations to make sure you know what's going on a regular basis?
Yeah, so I think from our experience anyway, especially with these kind of bigger clients where the media spend is higher and also the pool of products is higher, we kind of have our like main contact that works with us. It's like the e-commerce manager, and it's basically his responsibility to ensure that the kind of like procurement managers within the company are like able to kind of update this list on a weekly basis and update what the priority products are. So in a bigger company, it might even be easier to kind of keep on top of that because there's one person who's responsible for kind of the overall pulling the list together, but then there are several people responsible for like a certain section of products that are then sent over to our main contact, who then sends them over to us. And then we can just take all the practical tips that I've given today to kind of like, it actually works really smoothly. But I think that, as I said, like the challenge here, like the main stumbling block could be the time it takes to generate that list. So if you're working with like a smaller business that do still have thousands of SKUs, it would certainly be more difficult, say if your like main point of contact is like the business owner, to get those priority products over. But I'd still suggest having that conversation, because even if your list of priority products is even say just like 50 or 100 products a week or a month or whatever, you might just update them less frequently, or the pool of products that you want to prioritize just might be smaller. So there are several ways of kind of tackling that, and you can kind of scale it based on what size business you're working with. But yeah, it's always going to be difficult with a smaller business that only has a couple of people. But highlighting the importance of doing this kind of exercise to them is only going to be like beneficial in the long run anyway, because you'll be preventing them from wasting media spend on products which aren't selling. So
preventing wasted spend is a definite way to keep people happy. And I think, time is one of the big elements you alluded to there as well. And this is, it seems like an incredibly time-consuming thing to do. So I suppose when you do have that limited time, how are you prioritizing what your approach is? You showed a few different techniques there. Like if you were super limited and it's emergency, we need this doing, what's your go-to first?
Well, so I think as I mentioned a couple of times, the biggest area that you can lose out here is with search campaigns, because like keywords just work differently to like shopping campaigns, and they aren't kind of automatically paused when products go out of stock. I'm sure there's a really clever way of doing that with like scripts if possible, but because dynamic search ads are becoming so they're getting so much better and becoming so important anyway, I definitely suggest, if you are limited by time, the kind of search techniques are what you approach first. and they kind of, in a way, require a little less like ongoing management as well. So as I said, you can get that on like a maximized conversions bidding strategy. You don't have to kind of use search query filtering in the same way as you would with shopping. So the kind of the upkeep of those campaigns once you've set them up is a lot lower. But yeah, the initial kind of setup is unfortunately always going to take a bit of time. But like I said, after that, really the main kind of time sink is keeping that list updated. But once say the client is sending you over a list of 500 SKUs each week, the actual process for updating the list in the page feed is like 5-10 minutes max. It's just copy and paste it into the page feed and update the custom labels, and then click update now. So once you have everything kind of built in place, it's not actually like particularly time consuming at all, which is why it's kind of worth doing at the moment when things are so difficult.
Cool. Yeah, definitely worth front loading and getting that time overhead out of the way at the beginning then.
Yeah, for sure. And it's usually, you can, especially for us, I suppose, but yeah, you can kind of like speak to your client about that and shift time around across months if necessary to do that. I mean, it's definitely worth doing so. And I'm sure if you present it to them as saving or preventing wastage in their advertising budget, then they're always going to be happy to do that.
Totally. There's unfortunately been no more questions come through on the chat, so I'm going to assume that you did such a fantastic job. Everybody's clued up on exactly how to handle things. They're going to be downloading your impression add-ons for Google Sheets and flying away with this already. They'll have dropped the sandwiches, cleaned the desk, and just going straight to it. But no, I really enjoyed that. I'm going to go back through it and try and pick a few bits up when I'm not handling things behind the scenes and get a good grasp of it too. So thank you all so much, Luke.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks for having me.
Of course. And of course, thank you to everybody that tuned in today across YouTube and LinkedIn. Usual bits at the end as we close off. In 2 weeks' time, this time breaking from tradition a little bit, and on a Friday, we're going to be back with our final, for now, Sheffield DM, where we'll be hosting Bethan Vincent. Now, Bethan is a freelance marketing consultant, and she's going to be delivering some really interesting, I guess, training rather than a standard talk on how you can confidently deliver presentations, pitches to clients, stand up and do talks when we get back to seeing each other in person. It should be a really, really interesting session. Again, just like today, loads of actionable tips and things you can start implementing straight away. We're also planning a very special event in person for September, so do keep your fingers crossed that we can go ahead with that, because hopefully we will be seeing you all for a bumper event later this year. And final point to make, the team and I, Evoluted and Sheffield DM, will be down at Brighton SEO in July for a few days. So if you are there in person, please do get in touch, hit us up and say hi. Luke's going to be there as well, albeit as a speaker rather than an attendee. So if you want to pick some more nuggets of wisdom from his brain, it's a perfect time to offer to buy him dinner. But honestly, it would be great to see a few people in person, get to meet some of our audience. So yeah, hit us up either hello@sheffielddm.co.uk, find us on Twitter, find me on Twitter or any of the other team. Let us know.
Yeah,
and also, of course,
sorry.
Go on, Luke, after you.
Yeah, I was going to say just on that point, like any questions ahead of Brighton, where I'll be doing the same talk. I guess if you're sharing around this deck afterwards, my kind of LinkedIn and Twitter are at the start of the deck as well. So you can get in touch with me over those.
Super. Yeah, we'll share this round on Twitter and by email afterwards, as well as the recording of this session. So anything you want to ask Luke, anything you want to pick back through, if you want to connect with him online, it'll all be there for you. And yeah, final bits. If you've liked today's session, give us a thumbs up on YouTube below. Give us a follow, a subscribe. That would be nice. You'll be notified of the next events that come up and everything else that we're running in the future. And as always, thank you so much once again, and we will see you next time. Any final comments from you, Luke? Anything you wanna pimp at the end of the event?
Not particularly about myself. I guess the only thing to mention, Impression are actually hiring in a bunch of positions at the moment across PPC, SEO, digital PR, and I think kind of like a client services account management position as well. So yeah, do check the Impression website out if you're kind of looking for new opportunities at the minute.
Awesome stuff. Thank you very much. And we will see you all in 2 weeks' time. Until then, goodbye.
Thanks a lot.